When I came home from my business trip, I found my daughter acting strange. When I pressed her, she said, "Dad, I hate the pills Mom gives me. They make me feel so weird." Pills. What pills? My wife never mentioned any medication. I searched the house and found an unlabeled bottle hidden in the kitchen cabinet. Just white tablets with vitamins written in my wife's handwriting. The next morning, I took Emily to the hospital for tests. When the doctor called me into her office and showed me the results, what she said made my blood run cold. If you're watching this story, please subscribe to the channel, like button, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I came home from my week-long business trip to Atlanta on a cold October evening in 2024. The flight had landed at SeaTac just after 5:30, and by the time I pulled my silver Audi into the driveway of our 2-story colonial house on Education Hill in Redmond, Washington, the sky was already the color of wet concrete, even though it was only 6:42 p.m. I was 53 years old. Every single one of those years pressing down on my shoulders a little heavier lately, and all I wanted was to drop my suitcase, hug my daughter, and pretend the world still made sense. I grabbed my briefcase from the passenger seat, walked up the flagstone path we had laid together as a family 6 summers ago, and opened the front door, calling out in the cheerful voice I always used after being away. "Emily, sweetheart. Daddy's home. Where's my favorite 10-year-old silence? Complete, unnatural silence. The kind of quiet that makes the hair on your arms stand up." I found her in the kitchen, sitting on the same tall stool she had used since she was 5, the one with the little booster cushion Lauren had sewn herself. Her math workbook was spread open in front of her, colorful pencils scattered like fallen leaves. But she wasn't writing. She was just staring at the page as if the numbers were written in a foreign language. Her small hands were pressed flat on the paper, her shoulders curved inward, her ponytail limp. The overhead pendant lights made the dark purple circles under her eyes look almost black, and her skin was so pale it seemed translucent. "Hey, kiddo," I said softly, dropping my briefcase and walking over to wrap my arms around her from behind. She didn't lean back into me the way she always did. She barely moved. "How was school?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She lifted her head just enough to mumble, "Fine," then dropped her gaze again. One word. For the past 3 weeks, that was all I had been getting. Fine. Tired. Nothing. I don't know. My once endlessly chatty, bright-eyed, always dancing through the house little girl had become someone I didn't recognize. I had noticed the changes the moment I came home from my last trip to Denver. At first I thought it was just end of 4th grade exhaustion, maybe a growth spurt. Maybe the new teacher was too strict. But then she started falling asleep on the living room couch right after school, sometimes at 3:30 in the afternoon, and sleeping straight through until 7 or 8 at night. When she woke up, she looked lost. Eyes glassy, voice slow, like she had to remember who she was and where she was. I had asked Lauren about it every single night for 2 weeks. Every single time my wife of 13 years looked up from her phone or her laptop, smiled that calm, reassuring smile I used to trust with my life, and said the same thing. "She's growing. Steven. Kids get tired. She'll be fine." But she wasn't fine. And deep in my gut, I knew it. That night I tried to keep everything normal. I pulled chicken breasts out of the fridge, turned on the stove, started chopping bell peppers the way Emily loved to watch. The bright colors always made her happy. "Want to help me make dinner, sweetheart?" I asked, forcing cheer into my voice. She shook her head slowly without looking up. "I'm not hungry." The words landed like stones. Emily not hungry was as rare as a solar eclipse. The silence that followed felt thick enough to choke on. I turned off the burner, pulled a stool right next to hers, took both of her ice-cold little hands in mine, and said as gently as I possibly could, "Emily, Baby, something is really, really wrong. I can see it. I can feel it. And I need you to trust me and tell me what it is. You will never ever be in trouble for telling me the truth. I promise you that on everything I am. Tears welled up instantly, spilling over her lashes and running down her pale cheeks. Her bottom lip trembled so hard, I thought her whole face might crack. Then she leaned forward, pressed her forehead against my chest, and whispered the words that changed my life forever, Hen. Please, please make Mom stop giving me those pills. They make me feel so weird, and I hate them so much. Every drop of blood in my body turned to ice. My heart actually stopped, then started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What pills? Sweetheart, I managed to ask, keeping my voice steady by sheer will. She pulled back just enough to look up at me with those huge, terrified blue eyes. The vitamins, she whispered, wiping her face with her sleeve. Mom says they're special vitamins that will help me focus better and do better in school. But every single time I swallow one, I get so sleepy I can't keep my eyes open no matter how hard I try. And then I sleep for hours and hours. And when I wake up, my head feels all fuzzy and wrong, and I don't like who I am when I wake up. I couldn't breathe. Lauren had never once, in 10 years of parenting, mentioned giving Emily any kind of vitamin, supplement, medication. Nothing. Not ever. I forced air into my lungs. When did this start? Baby Emily thought hard, counting on her trembling fingers. 3 weeks ago, maybe a little more. The first time was that Saturday you went to the office to finish the Peterson proposal. Mom said it would make me super smart, but I fell asleep on the couch and didn't wake up until you came home for dinner. My mind raced back. Yes, I remembered that day. I had come home and found Emily groggy and confused, and Lauren had said she'd just had a long nap because she was tired from a sleepover the night before. How many times has she given them to you? I asked, terrified of the answer. Emily kept counting, her voice getting smaller with every number. 8 times. Maybe 9. Only when you're gone. Dad. Never when you're home. She always waits until you leave. A wave of nausea crashed over me so hard I had to grip the edge of the island to stay upright. Sweetheart, I said, cupping her face in my hands. Can you please, right now, go get the bottle and bring it to me? She nodded, slipped off the stool, and disappeared upstairs. I stood there alone in the kitchen with my fists clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms, trying to breathe, trying not to scream, trying not to put my fist through the wall. Less than a minute later, she came back holding a small, plain, white plastic bottle like it was radioactive, placing it carefully in my shaking hand as if it might explode at any second. There was no label, no pharmacy sticker, no child safety cap. Nothing at all except a strip of masking tape with the word vitamins written in Lauren's perfect, looping handwriting. I unscrewed the cap and poured 4 tablets into my palm. Small, round, completely unmarked white pills. My throat closed completely. Dad, Emily whispered, voice cracking with pure fear. Am I in trouble? Are you mad at me? I dropped to my knees right there on the kitchen floor, pulled her into the tightest hug of her life and said, No, baby, no. You are the bravest, strongest, most incredible little girl in the entire world for telling me this. You just saved yourself, and you saved us. I am so proud of you I could burst. She clung to me and sobbed into my shoulder while I held her, rocking her gently, while inside my head, one thought roared over everything else. What in the name of God is my wife doing to our daughter? I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. The bottle sat on the kitchen island under the pendant lights like a tiny white bomb counting down. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily's pale face, heard her terrified whisper. They make me sleep for hours and hours. Dad. At 3:17 a.m., I gave up, went downstairs, made an entire pot of coffee I never touched, and just stared at those unmarked tablets until the sun came up. Lauren came home at 10:51 the next morning, breezing through the door with her laptop bag and a bright smile, apologizing that a client presentation in Bellevue ran long, kissing my cheek like everything was perfectly normal, asking if Emily was upstairs doing homework. I said yes, watched her climb the stairs, and felt nothing but cold, controlled rage. At 6:01 a.m. sharp, the second the appointment line at Seattle Children's Hospital opened, I was on the phone explaining that I needed to bring my 10-year-old daughter in immediately because I had strong reason to believe she had been given unknown medication by an adult and required emergency toxicology screening. They cleared an 8:30 slot in the pediatric emergency wing. I woke Emily gently, sat on the edge of her bed, smoothed her hair back from her forehead, and said, "Sweetheart, we're going to see a doctor this morning, just to make sure you're 100% okay." Her eyes flew open in panic. "Dad, am I sick? Am I going to die?" "No. Baby, never, I promise. I just need to keep you safe. That's my only job in the universe." Lauren was still in the shower singing some pop song, so I left a short note on the counter taking Emily to a doctor's appointment. "We'll call later." We drove the 27 minutes to Seattle Children's in total silence, Emily clutching her stuffed elephant and her backpack the entire way, staring out the window with huge, frightened eyes that broke my heart into a million pieces. Dr. Monica Ramirez met us herself in the pediatric emergency wing, a calm, gray-haired woman in her late 40s with sharp green eyes that missed absolutely nothing. I explained everything as steadily as I could. The sudden extreme exhaustion, the hours of unnatural deep sleep, the unmarked vitamins that caused immediate and profound sedation. "Doctor." Ramirez's face darkened the second I placed the bottle in her hand. "This has no labeling, no child safety features. Nothing," she said, jaw tightening visibly. "We need a full toxicology panel, blood, urine, the works. Right now." They took Emily to the lab. I stood outside the glass, watching the nurse insert the needle into my little girl's arm, watching vial after vial fill with her blood. Emily was so incredibly brave she didn't cry once, just squeezed her eyes shut and held my hand through the window until it was over. 49 endless minutes later, Dr. Ramirez came out holding a thick printout, closed her office door, and asked me to sit down. "Mr. Russell," she began quietly, "your daughter has extremely high levels of diphenhydramine in her system, the active ingredient in powerful adult sleep medications. At these concentrations in a child her age, especially repeated over multiple weeks, it causes severe sedation, profound confusion, memory gaps, disorientation, and with continued exposure can lead to irreversible cognitive impairment or permanent brain damage." The room actually spun. My ears started ringing so loud I could barely hear her next words. "Someone has been deliberately administering adult-strength sedatives to your 10-year-old daughter, Mr. Russell." My voice came out a broken whisper. They came from her mother. "Doctor." Ramirez froze completely. Her pen stopped moving, and she looked at me with a mixture of professional composure and pure, protective fury. "We are required by law to file a mandatory report with Child Protective Services immediately," she said softly. "And we need to discuss next steps, safety planning, and possible law enforcement involvement right now." I drove home in total silence while Emily slept exhausted in the back seat from the blood draw and the terror. I kept glancing at her in the rearview mirror, her tiny body curled against the door, breathing slow and deep, her stuffed elephant clutched to her chest, and Dr. Ramirez's words kept echoing in my skull. Permanent cognitive damage, possibly irreversible. One question clawed at my brain without mercy. Why? Why? Why would Lauren do this to her own child? I tightened my grip on the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, and my hands ached for the rest of the day. I pulled into the Best Buy parking lot in Bellevue because I knew exactly what I had to do next. And I had to do it before Lauren came home. Emily stirred. "Dad, where are we? Just need to grab one thing super quick. Honey, lock the doors and keep your elephant close. I'll be right back." Inside, under the harsh fluorescent lights, I bought the smallest, most discreet security camera money could buy. One that looked identical to a regular USB phone charger. 4K video, crystal clear audio, motion activated, live streaming to an app. Completely hidden. 28 minutes later, I parked outside Margaret's cozy bungalow in Tacoma. Lauren's mother. She opened the door with a huge smile and open arms. "Steve and Emily. What on earth are you doing here? What a wonderful surprise." "Hi, Margaret." I forced a smile that felt like it might crack my face in half. "I hate to ask this last minute, but we're having contractors come tomorrow for some very noisy remodeling. Drywall dust everywhere. Could Emily please stay with you for 5 or 6 days?" Margaret's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. "Of course, we'll bake chocolate chip cookies, oatmeal raisin, watch every Disney movie ever made, have the best time." Emily looked up at me confused and a little scared. "Why can't I stay home?" "Dad," I knelt down, cupped her face in my hands, kissed her forehead, and said, "Because I have to take care of some very important grown-up things. Sweetheart, and you will have so much more fun with Grandma. I promise everything is going to be okay." She nodded uncertainly, but Margaret took her hand, and they disappeared inside, talking excitedly about sprinkles and extra chocolate chips. I stood on the porch a long moment, my chest physically hurting because I was lying to both of them. But I had no choice anymore. The house felt like a tomb when I walked back in alone. I unplugged the living room table lamp beside the gray sectional couch, replaced the plug with the camera charger, angled it perfectly to capture the entire couch, coffee table, hallway, front door, and even part of the kitchen. I opened the app on my phone. The picture was razor sharp, audio perfect. I walked across the room, testing every angle, waving, speaking. Everything showed up flawlessly. "Good," I whispered to the empty house. "Let's see what you do when you think no one is watching." "Lauren." My phone buzzed. Lauren asking if I wanted her to pick up Thai takeout since she was wrapping up early downtown. I stared at the message for a full 2 minutes, then typed, "Sure. That sounds perfect. Love you." She replied instantly with heart emojis and "Love you more. See you soon." I typed "Love you too" and felt acid burn my throat. Monday morning, I kissed Lauren goodbye at the door like every other day for the past 13 years. Told her have a good day working from home on that big Microsoft presentation. She smiled up at me in her soft white bathrobe, squeezed my hand. "Love you." The lie tasted like poison. I drove exactly 4 blocks, parked in the back corner of a Starbucks lot where my car was completely hidden from the street, and opened the app. At 8:49, Lauren appeared on screen, hair perfectly blow-dried, full makeup, tight dark jeans, heeled boots, and a fitted emerald green sweater that hugged every curve. Definitely not clothes for sitting alone at home working. She sat on the couch with her laptop and a mug of coffee, scrolling her phone, smiling at texts, typing back quickly, laughing softly at something private that made my skin crawl. The morning dragged by in excruciating slowness. At 11:59, the doorbell rang. Lauren jumped up like she had been expecting it, checked her reflection in the hallway mirror, smoothed her hair one last time, and opened the door with a radiant, glowing smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. A tall, dark-haired man in his middle 30s stepped inside. Good-looking, expensive leather jacket, designer watch, perfect teeth. Connor Bennett. I remembered him instantly from Lauren's company holiday party 10 months earlier, when she had introduced him as the brilliant new senior manager from the New York office and practically glowed the entire night while we all drank overpriced champagne. The second the door closed, they fell into each other's arms. Long, hungry, familiar, desperate. Lauren disappeared off-screen for 23 seconds and came back with 2 crystal wine glasses and a bottle of the expensive Pinot Noir we had been saving for our anniversary. Wine at noon on a Monday workday. They clinked glasses, laughed at inside jokes I wasn't part of. He put his hand on her knee and left it there. She leaned into him like she belonged there. Then he kissed her. For one horrible, frozen second, I prayed with every cell in my body that she would push him away, that this was some awful misunderstanding. But she didn't. She kissed him back with everything she had, her hand sliding into his hair, his arms pulling her onto his lap, her legs wrapping around him. They melted into each other like they had done this 1,000 times before, like they belonged to each other, like I had never existed. My vision went red, then black at the edges. 13 years of marriage, 11 years raising Emily together. Every family vacation, every Christmas morning, every late night rocking a sick baby to sleep, every promise, every I love you, every memory flashed in front of me and turned to ash in less than 10 seconds. I turned the feed off, dropped the phone into my lap, gripped the steering wheel until my hands went numb, and tried to remember how to breathe. My wedding ring suddenly felt like it was burning a hole straight through my finger. Over the next 7 days, I recorded every single visit. Connor came back Wednesday afternoon, Friday morning, Saturday while I pretended to be at the office catching up on emails, and again the following Monday. Same routine every single time. Wine, laughter, touching, kissing, hands disappearing under clothing, clothes coming off, moans I never wanted to hear. I saved every minute of footage to an encrypted USB drive, backed everything up to 4 separate cloud accounts, and made 2 additional physical copies. Cold, undeniable, high-definition, date and time-stamped proof of exactly what my marriage had become. Thursday night, Lauren texted that she had a team celebration dinner at Conless and would be home very late. While she was gone, I spread 10 full months of bank statements across the office desk like a crime scene map. Cash withdrawals of $800, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 at a time. More than $45,000 vanished into thin air. Always on days she claimed client meetings or late work sessions or team drinks. Hotel charges at the Four Seasons, the Fairmont Olympic, the Edgewater, the Thompson. Restaurants I had begged to take her to for anniversaries, but she always said were too expensive, and tucked inside a manila envelope at the very bottom of the filing cabinet. A receipt from a high-end Bellevue jeweler for a $6,000 sapphire and diamond pendant necklace I had never once seen around her neck. Dated the same week as one of the Four Seasons charges. That same week, I walked into the 36th floor corner office of Rebecca Morrison, widely considered the most feared and respected family law attorney in the entire Pacific Northwest. I laid everything on her mahogany conference table: the toxicology report, the hidden camera footage spanning 7 separate occasions, 10 months of financial records showing $45,000 dissipated, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, the jewelry receipt, Dr. Ramirez's written statement about permanent cognitive risk. She watched every video without flinching, reviewed every document in complete silence, and when I finally finished, she leaned back in her leather chair and said, "Mr. Russell, this is the strongest, cleanest, most bulletproof case for sole custody and full asset protection I have ever seen in 28 years of practice. No judge in the state of Washington would even consider granting her unsupervised visitation after this evidence. Sign here, here, and here, and we can file today." I signed every page with a hand that shook only slightly, then asked her to hold formal service for 10 more days. I wanted Margaret to see with her own two eyes exactly who her daughter had become before the papers ever landed. 10 days later, I called Margaret and told her Emily had been begging for Grandma all week, and could she please come over that afternoon for cookies and cuddles? I picked her up at 1:28 sharp. She brought 3 tins, chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, and snickerdoodle, and chatted happily the entire drive about how excited she was to see her granddaughter. Margaret kept glancing at me. "Stephen, you look like you haven't slept in weeks. Is everything okay? You'll understand everything in just a few minutes," I said quietly. "Just please stay calm no matter what you see." At 2:13, we stepped silently through the front door. There on the gray sectional couch, Lauren was wrapped tightly in Connor's arms, kissing him with a desperation that made my stomach turn. Shoes kicked off across the room, wine glasses on the coffee table, his jacket thrown over a chair, her hands tangled in his hair, his hand sliding up under her sweater and staying there. Margaret dropped all 3 cookie tins. They hit the hardwood floor with a deafening triple crash that echoed through the entire house. Lauren's head snapped toward us, all color draining from her face in less than a second, shoving Connor away, scrambling to cover herself, pulling her sweater down. "Mom, Stephen." Connor stood panicked, face red, stammering. "Mr. Russell, this isn't what it looks like. I swear we were just... Get out of my house right now." My voice was low, deadly calm, quieter than I have ever spoken in my life. He grabbed his jacket, nearly tripped over the coffee table, and ran out the front door without looking back. The door slammed shut behind him like a gunshot. Silence fell so heavy it hurt. Margaret was shaking uncontrollably, tears already streaming down her cheeks in rivers, staring at her daughter like she was looking at a complete stranger wearing Lauren's face. "Lauren," she whispered, voice breaking into 1,000 pieces. "How could you do this in Emily's home, in the house where your daughter sleeps?" Lauren tried to stand, legs shaking. "Mom, please, let me explain. It's not what..." I cut her off, pulled out my phone, opened the app, and played the most recent saved video right there in the living room. Lauren and Connor on that exact couch 3 days earlier. Wine, laughter, clothes coming off, moans filling the speakers. Lauren collapsed back onto the couch, sobbing hysterically, curling into a ball. Margaret's voice cut through the room like a blade made of ice and grief. "You drugged my granddaughter. You gave Emily powerful adult sedatives so you could bring this man into her house while she slept upstairs, helpless and poisoned." Lauren whispered through choking sobs that they were just harmless over-the-counter sleep aids, that it was only a few times, that she never meant any harm, that she thought it was safe. Margaret stepped back, hand clamped over her mouth. "Don't you dare touch me. I am ashamed you are my daughter. I am ashamed I raised you." I looked Lauren dead in the eyes and said, "I've filed for divorce. Rebecca Morrison will serve you tomorrow morning at 9 sharp. I am taking sole legal and physical custody of Emily. You will never be alone with her again for the rest of your life." Margaret turned to me, tears pouring down her face, voice trembling with grief and absolute fury. "I will testify for you in court, Stephen. I will sit on that stand and tell the judge every single thing I just saw and heard. Emily deserves to be safe from her own mother." Lauren fell to her knees on the living room floor, screaming, begging, promising to end it with Connor that same second, promising therapy, promising to change, promising anything and everything and more. Margaret walked out the front door without another word. I followed. We left Lauren curled on the floor, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe, mascara running in black rivers down her face. Outside, Margaret leaned against the car, crying silently, shoulders shaking so hard I thought she might collapse. I opened the passenger door for her. She got in, and we drove away from the house that used to be our home, past the mailbox that still had both our names on it, past the basketball hoop Emily had learned to shoot on, past the life I thought I had built. Neither of us spoke the entire 40-minute drive to Tacoma. 2.5 months later, we stood in Department 14 of the King County Family Court in downtown Seattle on a cold December morning. The judge, a stern, silver-haired woman in her 60s named Judge Eleanor Hartman, reviewed the mountain of evidence in complete silence for 27 minutes. Rebecca Morrison presented everything methodically and without emotion. The toxicology report showing repeated diphenhydramine poisoning. The hidden camera footage from 7 separate occasions. 10 months of financial records proving $45,000 dissipated on hotels and gifts for a lover. Dr. Ramirez's testimony about permanent cognitive risk to a child. And finally, Margaret's heartbreaking statement. Margaret took the stand, looked the judge in the eye, and through tears that never stopped, said, "My own daughter endangered my granddaughter so she could carry on an affair in the family home while the child lay drugged upstairs. I fully and completely support Mr. Russell's petition for sole custody. Emily deserves to be safe." Lauren's attorney asked exactly 2 questions on cross-examination and then sat down. There was nothing left to say. Judge Hartman spoke without raising her voice. "The marriage is dissolved. Mr. Stephen Russell is awarded sole legal and physical custody of the minor child. Emily Russell, age 10, Miss. Lauren Russell is granted 1 supervised visit per month at an approved family visitation center, to be conducted in the presence of a court-appointed supervisor at all times. Miss Russell will repay Mr. Russell $42,000 for dissipation of marital assets within 90 days. The gavel came down. It was over. I signed the final papers outside the courtroom with a hand that no longer shook. Rebecca squeezed my shoulder and said quietly, "You did the right thing. Stephen, you saved your daughter's life." The house in Redmond sold in 9 days for $565,000. Emily and I moved into a bright, airy 2-bedroom corner unit apartment on the 12th floor in downtown Bellevue, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington and the Olympic Mountains beyond. Light pours into every room from sunrise to sunset. Emily picked out soft lavender paint for her bedroom walls. We hung every drawing she has ever made, framed her favorite ones, set up her desk right by the window so she can watch the ferries and the sailboats while she does homework. Bought her a new adjustable bed with purple sheets and a canopy because she said she always wanted to feel like a princess. Moving day, she stood in the empty living room, backpack on her shoulders, turning in a slow circle, taking it all in with wide eyes. "Dad," she said quietly, voice full of wonder. "Is this really our new home now?" Forever I knelt down so we were eye to eye, cupped her face in my hands, and said, "Yes, sweetheart, this is our home, our safe place, our fresh start. Just you and me, forever and ever." She threw her arms around my neck so hard she almost knocked me over and whispered against my shoulder, "I feel safe here, Daddy. I really, really, really do." I held her so tight I was afraid I'd never let go. And I didn't for a very long time. 12 months have passed since that terrible night everything exploded. Emily just turned 11 3 weeks ago. She is thriving in 6th grade. Top of her class in art and English. Her laugh fills the apartment every single day. Her cheeks are pink again. Her eyes are bright and curious. She sleeps through the night with no nightmares, no confusion, no fear. She joined the art club, the robotics team, and has sleepovers every other weekend with her 3 best friends, Ava, Madison, and Sophia, who fill our home with giggling I can hear from the balcony. Margaret comes over 5 evenings a week now, cooks homemade lasagna, chicken pot pie, or her famous beef stew, helps with math homework, reads bedtime stories when I have to work late, and Emily runs to the door shouting Grandma Maggie the second she hears the key in the lock, jumping into her arms like she's been waiting all day. Lauren still has her one court-ordered supervised hour each month at the visitation center downtown. Emily goes because the court says she has to. Sits politely across the plastic table, answers questions with short sentences, never smiles, never hugs her. When I pick her up afterward, she is quiet in the car for exactly 4 blocks, then asks if we can stop for ice cream, and I always say yes. Some spring and summer evenings, Emily and I walk the lakefront trail hand in hand, eat ice cream from the little stand by the pier, watch the sun set over the water in 1,000 shades of pink and orange and purple. 3 weeks ago, she leaned her head against my shoulder on our favorite bench and said softly, "Dad, I'm happy here. I feel safe, truly safe, all the time, every single day." I kissed the top of her head so she wouldn't see the tears rolling down my face and whispered, "That's all I ever wanted for you, kiddo. That, and to see you smile again, you." That night after she fell asleep, I stood in her doorway for a long, long time watching her breathe peacefully, face completely relaxed. One arm wrapped around her stuffed elephant, the lavender walls glowing in the moonlight. No trace of the terror that used to live in our lives. I thought about everything we had survived. The lies, the betrayal, the poison, the fight to protect her, the long, dark, heartbreaking road that led to this quiet, perfect moment of peace. And I knew without a single doubt that we had made it through the worst darkness life could ever throw at us. This is my true story, every single word of it, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. I almost ignored the signs because I didn't want to believe the woman I loved for 13 years could hurt our daughter. I almost explained away Emily's terrified little voice as childhood imagination or exaggeration. But she was brave enough to tell me the truth when she was only 10 years old, and I was just barely strong enough to listen, to act, to fight. Trust your gut the second something feels wrong. Act immediately. Investigate. Fight like hell. Protect your child with everything you have, because they are counting on you to be their shield. Even when the monster is someone who once promised in front of God and everyone to love them forever. They have only one daddy, and that daddy has to be willing to burn the world down to keep them safe. Emily is safe now. She is happy now. She is healing, growing, laughing, dreaming again. And so, finally, after the longest year of my life, if this story shook you, made you angry, made you cry, please hit that like button. Share it so others wake up. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you're new here, subscribe and ring the bell. We tell real stories that need to be heard. Thank you for listening.